Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. I've spoken now a number of times about the importance of the seas to our basic existence as human beings. Indeed, the seas provide the basis of life on our planet and largely determine the global climate. They largely determine local environments and coastal environments in particular, and they support a huge amount of a range and a value of economic activity, as well as a wide range of species, from whales and dolphins to fish and to birds and to the humble plankton indeed. But the seas are also, we know, under enormous pressure. There's a huge range of competing uses that the Minister alluded to, both on the inshore and offshore. Energy generation, on the one hand, with the growing pressure for potential wind generation offshore, as well as tidal generation, extraction of oil, the fishing industry that Kenny Gibson has just touched on, sea angling more in the inshore waters with recreation, sailing, kayaking, the dreaded jet skiing, as well as bird watching, for example. So enormous competing pressures on our resource, but also pressures too from pollution over years of dumping things in the sea, expecting the sea to take care of that, and we know there are limits to that. But also the sea is subject to climate change, with coastal erosion taking place, partly because of greater tidal surges than we've seen before, rising sea levels, rising sea temperatures, and that causing change to the ecosystems that exist. And also the seas are covered by a range of agencies seeking to govern what happens here. The Crown Estate, local authorities have got a role, SNH, fisheries organisations, coastguards. You could name a whole range of organisations with vital interests. So we've got a vital and a complex, but also a pressured resource. And the Marine Bill is a chance to address a lot of the issues that arise from that, to try and reconcile those competing interests that exist, to try and seek management solutions to the problems that are there, and to develop the spatial planning concept that will hopefully provide a basis for agreement about the use of our seas. But that bill needs to be founded on very firm principle, and I want to pick up some of the themes that Robin Harper touched on in that regard. And it seems to me that principle that you need to base the bill on has to itself be based on the question of sustainability at the heart of that, and biodiversity. And it's from those bases that you will begin to see and can then build sustainable economic growth. But without the sustainability, without the biodiversity coming first, it is never possible to sustain that economic growth into the long term. And that's crucial for this bill. It's a foundation upon which the bill needs to build. And I do hope that we will see in the bill a clear duty placed on Scottish ministers, both to promote biodiversity as part of their duty in this regard, but secondly, to secure the health, or seek to secure the health, of our seas into the future. And that should drive and underpin all of the actions that they take that flow out of this bill. And into the future, that will require continuing and good pollution controls. It will require the sustainable exploitation of our fishing resource. It will require species protection. And again, to pick up a point that Kenny Gibson was touching on, also looking at protection and protected areas. This is not just about halting the current decline in the condition of our seas. It also has to be about restoring and recovering the damage that has been done in years and generations past. If you listen to sea anglers, they will tell you, among others, about the huge damage that has been done to our inshore fishing waters, our inshore waters. Whole species have disappeared, the seabed has been destroyed in parts, corals have vanished, and the like. And it's in that context that the case for protected areas must play a part in the future. Now, that is very controversial stuff, and you only need to go to the Sound of Barra to see how you get reaction from local communities about the potential of, as they may see it, imposition of protected zones or protected areas. Now, I don't believe that you should be forcing protected areas onto communities. You've got to try and take communities with you. But in so doing, we must take much more time and effort to both not only spell out the conservation value of such measures, but to spell out, if you can conserve effectively, the economic growth potential and the opportunities for economic activity that flow from that. And I think we've got to do much more to support those arguments in the future. So marine protected areas are one part of the strategy for the future, it seems to me. The last point I want to make is this, Presiding Officer, that in all their work, the ministers, not just these ministers, but future ministers, need to be bound and guided by the science that helps us understand what's happening in the seas.